We're back out here at the Big Lake once again, and today we're talking about my favorite baits that get it done in the month of May, whether it's windy days, whether it's pressure days, or everything in between. Stick around, we're going to talk all about it. Oh, there we go. Ooh, that's a nice one. On the spinnerbait. Come on, buddy. Ooh, you're not getting down in that gunk. Out of the gunk. There we go. That's a big bass, kids. And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing, and here we are, already the month of May. For those of us in South Mississippi and along the Gulf South in Florida, Alabama, and Louisiana, it's getting hot. Today it was in the upper 80s, and it's only going to get warmer for here. But that doesn't mean the weather's getting any better. Today we had cloudy skies, and we had 15 to 20 miles an hour wind with gusts around 30 miles an hour. And that's going to be pretty normal for a while. Included in that is the obscene amount of fishing pressure that our fisheries have anymore. All across the country, fishing pressure is up through the roof. So that is probably the one constant we have to deal with every single time we go out to the lake. So what are the presentations and baits and techniques that I'm using? Well, we're going to be looking at 3 different families, like I said, grouped up several different baits into these families. And the first thing we're going to be looking at is, well, a bladed jig. In this case, a 1/2 ounce Strike King Thunder Cricket. And if you notice, I've colored that blade. I've taken a Sharpie and I've muted it. And I find that when the water's really pressured, or whenever it's really clear and we have bluebird sunny skies, coloring that blade in can be very beneficial. I really like doing that. I feel like I've gotten a lot more bites doing that. It improves my confidence in these on a bluebird sky with a lot of pressure. Now, if we have more of a cloud cover, I'll generally go with something that might have an actual flash to it. The blade will be chrome or the blade will be gold. But on an average day, or if we've got bluebird skies and we've got maybe a little bit less wind. Now I'm going to be fishing these on more like grass flats, hydrilla flats. I'm going to be fishing these more out in the open away from the bank. Especially if we've got a little bit of current going, I'm going to be looking for those current seams and the weed edges. That's where I'm going to be looking to throw something like this. I feel that they're very effective. Now, they don't always have to be white, but white is a great color. Another color I like to use is brown. And you can see this has got that matte finished blade on it. I really like that. I like this with a brown trailer, whether it's a crawl, whether it's a creature bait. I find that I get amazing strikes on this. And again, I'm fishing this in that same type of area. I'm fishing it where we have hydrilla flats, where there's a lot of vegetation, whether you have milfoil or eelgrass. This comes through there remarkably well. And again, the type of trailer that I'm going to be using is generally something like a chatter spike by Z-Man or a fluke style bait, something like that. If I'm using something like a crawl, I'm making sure that those appendages don't have big ridges on them that initiate a lot of flap. I want to be using something that has less drag on it, so this blade can really vibrate. We've talked about that in a video before where we showed underwater footage of something like a paddle tail versus something like a fluke, and you could really see the effect it really had on those chatterbaits. Now, in the opposite direction, again, we've got some wind, we've got some current, and I'm fishing up closer to the bank. I'm actually going to be working along timber lines, and that's going to be where spinnerbait for me shines. If I see a lot of that current blowing down the bank, or if I can find a current seam and I'm seeing blowdowns and laydowns and I'm seeing timber, this is going to be what I reach for. I find that a bladed jig, a chatterbait, doesn't do as well around wood. It does great in vegetation, not so good around wood. To me, this is going to be the ticket for those wooded areas, blowdowns, laydowns, stumps, those types of things, even under flooded brush. I have some wind that's blowing parallel with the bank, and I can get on the boat and I can drift down with that. I can work this along there and I can crank it really slowly, and I can have a lot of success doing that. Again, on a more bluebird type of sky, I'm going to be using something that's a little bit more subtle. Sometimes I'll use a trailer with this. Sometimes I won't use a trailer. It depends on how compact I want that presentation. If I feel those bass are really pressured, I will go without a trailer and try to make that presentation a little bit more compact. I find the bass like that. And as far as the blades go, well, this is a Guggen Zinger. It's got the tandem blades on it. It's got this right here's a willow, and it's got a Colorado blade on it. This is going to be my standard go-to. But if I have a day like today that water was a little bit murky, we had a lot of rain that came through, and we had some cloudy days, well, then I'm going something like this. And this is a Booyah. And you can see I've got that paddle tail on there. That is a Rage Swimmer from Strike King. And this is a chartreuse color, but you see it's got that painted blade on there. And you say, well, lowbrow, you were talking about on the chatterbait, whenever you had less light, you wanted a shiny blade. Well, on a spinnerbait, I kind of do the opposite, I kind of want that dull blade when there's a lot of murk to that water because, well, if you think about it, there's not going to be a lot of flash going through that water if it's really stained anyway. But I do have some ways that I like to fish that. There is some methodology that I like to use whenever I'm in the boat. So let's head out to the lake and we'll take a look at how I'm fishing a spinnerbait whenever it's windy and you've got some current. All right, we've got this spinnerbait right here. It's kind of a chartreuse with the bass see it as white with a little bit of red on there. I've got a black and white Rage Swimmer as my trailer, and you can see it's a tandem blade with a small Colorado and a willow, but that willow blade is painted. It's got a little bit of a, come here you, it's got a little bit of a color to it. And what I'm doing with it is you see the timber, you see all this timber through here, and that's what I'm working. I'm casting it out to the edge of that timber, and I'm just kind of slow rolling it back. So all I'm doing is just kind of slow rolling it back. We've got a lot of wind today. We've got a lot of current out here today. So this is a great technique whenever you see those windy days and you've got that current coming by the timber. Those bass will, a lot of times, they'll hang out up under that structure and that cover like that. And you can throw a spinnerbait in there, bring it across, parallel, even from the bank you can make casts out to the edge of the timber and you can bring it back to you. I've got dunk on it there we go. And that's just kind of what I'm doing. I'm seeing these laydowns, these places where the wood is sticking out when I see that timber, and I'm making casts to it, and that's all I'm doing. The difference between a spinnerbait and a bladed jig to me is, what am I fishing? If I'm fishing if I'm fishing vegetation, if I'm fishing hydrilla, if I'm fishing milfoil, out in the middle of a flat, then more than likely I'm going to be using a bladed jig, a chatterbait, something like that. If I'm seeing timber and laydowns and I've got some current going by that, then I'm going to be pulling out the old spinnerbait. And that can be, can be a great way to catch some of those fish on days when it can be a lot of tough, it can be a lot of a struggle. Those bass just don't want to cooperate. So just kind of slow rolling it, not doing anything fancy, maybe giving it a little bit of a turn, a little bit of a pause. But we've caught some nice toads today doing that, and that was nice. So just keep that in mind, if you're fishing vegetation, you're fishing out more of a flat, then a chatterbait, a bladed jig. If you're fishing timber, blowdowns, laydowns, and you've got some current going through there, I would strongly suggest using something like a spinnerbait. That can be your best friend. So give it a try. Yeah, I must have come out here because the wind picked up as soon as I did. If I hadn't been out here, the wind... Oh, there we go. Ooh, that's a nice one. On the spinnerbait. Come on, buddy. Ooh, you're not getting down in that gunk. Out of the gunk. There we go. That's a big bass, kids. That is a big bass. Come here, buddy. Oh, you're not getting... Boy, you're so big, you're cutting a hole in my finger. Ooh. Ooh, he cut my finger. There you go. Right there. We're going to get you on the spinnerbait in the wind. We got wind. Oh, you weren't going anywhere, pal. Alright, buddy. Beautiful bass. Beautiful bass. Beautiful, gorgeous bass. Made the whole day worth it. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. You have yourself a great day. You have yourself a great day, and we will see you later. And there he went. Awesome. Okay, so you can see it's very simple. I drift down with the current, and I make my cast, and I slow roll it. And I catch really nice fish. Today, I caught really nice fish using this setup. And this is nothing fancy. 7-foot medium heavy. I've got 12-pound fluorocarbon. This is a 7 1-to-1 gear ratio. Your standard setup will work just fine. Now, the reason why I don't use a casting setup and more setup more suited for casting is because these can have a little bit of drag to them. They'll bow your rod quite a bit. So I want to actually have something that's got a little bit more stiffer backbone, and that's why I'm using a medium heavy with a fast action tip. Now, moving on, there is another type of bait that I find that works exceptionally well when you've got some wind and you've got some cloud cover, and that's going to be a little crankbait. Now, if you've been around this channel for a year or so, maybe a little bit more, you're going to recognize this dude. You see how beat up this thing is. This is my Lucky Strike Classical Leader. And this is a little, I guess you'd call it a medium deep diver. It gets down to about 8 to 12 feet, depending on how I fish it. And this is on my casting setup. This is a medium heavy rod, but it's got a more moderate tip, and it's got the micro guys. And this setup is purely for crankbait fishing. 12-pound fluorocarbon again, and this is a 6 4-to-1 gear ratio reel. Might seem slow to you, but it keeps me honest. So that way, when I'm burning it, I'm really burning it. And whenever I can work it a little bit slower and do a little slow roll, I don't have to worry about overpowering that bait. With this guy right here, it is a much smaller presentation. You can see it's only about 2 inches long, and it's pretty tiny as far as crankbaits go. This is going to be on the smaller side. So when I have a lot of pressure, whenever we've got some wind, I'm going to be pulling out something like this, something that's going to be on the smaller side. Another bait I like to use is a Bandit 200. You know, I have white and black. I like those colors, and they do really good. Something like, you know, a wiggle wart or a Big O, or, you know, something along those lines will work amazingly well whenever you've got a lot of pressure and you're wanting to cover water and you're wanting to do some cranking. But if you've got, say, a lot of pressure, and say you've got more of a sunny day, you've got a lot of bluebird skies going on, you've got a lot of other guys on the lake, and maybe not as much wind, but you want to fish a little bit closer to the bank, maybe you're a bank angler, well, something like this. We've talked about this guy before a lot of times. This is one of my favorite square bills. This is a KVD 2.5 by Strike King. Again, I'm going to be using this. I will use this up near the bank. Now, I won't necessarily use it right up in timber, but I will use it around timber. Maybe we don't have quite as much wind on a day I'm using the spinnerbait, right? On a day when I'm using the spinnerbait, I've got a lot of wind. Maybe we've got a moderate amount of wind. Maybe we've got that 5 to 10 mile an hour wind blowing through. Maybe we've got some overcast skies all the way up to bluebird skies. I'm going to be using something like this. Now, this is just in that sexy shad pattern. It's a great little crankbait. And again, it does not have any rattles in it. So this is perfect for those pressured bodies of water. On those days, say you're out on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday, and that lake is just jam-packed with other anglers. This can be money. something like this, or maybe a different color, maybe a darker color, maybe a lighter color, whatever works for your fishery. But for me, this shad pattern, especially around the shad spawn, which we're right on the verge of here in South Mississippi, something like this will work exceptionally well. Now, I talked about a bonus. I talked about a kicker. I'm going to give you one last one because, well, this is my little secret sauce, okay? This is the one that gets it done for me, because a lot of times, as I've said before, you've just got to slow it down. And I like to show them something different. You want to show those bass something completely different. And a lot of times for me, that's going to be the good old wacky jig, okay? I've just got a regular red shad colored yum dinger on here. I've got a couple of O-rings to keep it centered. And this is just a 1/4 ounce Bitsy bug jig. I think this is a Bitsy flip, actually. It's got the heavier brush guard on it. And I've just taken the skirt off of it. And these things right here, I can't tell you how many fish I've caught with these. And every time I go to fish one, I get the strangest, craziest looks. You know, people think that I'm nuts for fishing like this. And it doesn't necessarily rock it down. It still falls fairly slowly. You still get a lot of that flap from the worm as it's going down. But these things will catch lots of bass whenever those fish are super pressured, whenever they have high pressure situations, whenever, you know, you've got high pressure after a storm front, you've got bluebird skies on those post frontal days. This is going to be money. This is the type of bait that you're going to be looking to use. Now, it is slow. You are going to have to slow drag this and barely move it. This is easy to overwork, but be slow with it. Give it lots of pauses. Let it dead stick for a while. Give it time to fall depending upon the depth of water that you're fishing. It takes longer than you think it does, right? And be nice and easy with it. Work with some slack in your line, and you will be amazed at how many fish you can catch, and not just numbers, but some really nice sized fish. So keep this one in mind. This is my little secret sauce to you, and I'm sure if you try it out, you're going to be amazed at the results. So there you have it. My favorite baits and techniques for the month of May. Depending on the situations, this is what I'm working and what works for me. I've caught a lot of fish doing it, and I'm sure that you can too. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.